It's Fortune Cookie 45LC coming to you from the hot lead zone up here in Washington State, so take that. Well, today I thought I'd do a video on a solution for inline fabrication to mount presses off your bench and mount them on the wall, and that gives you a nice uncluttered bench top. And I'm using these 52-inch Husky rolling tool chests with the 1-inch thick wood tops, and it's nice to not have these all cluttered up. Well, a few weeks ago I gave Dan, the owner of Inline Fabrication, a call, and I said, Dan, I want to mount my presses on the wall. And he said, well, not a problem, just get my long mounting bar and put it on your wall, and you can go ahead and take these little L-shaped steel docking bars that he sells, and it's got little screws that stick out the back and little bolts, and these things will just latch onto that bar and you can store any number of presses. Well, I told him my problem is I've got a shed and I don't have any long walls. What I do have are some vertical sections, so I'd like to go ahead and mount my presses on a vertical storage instead of a horizontal storage. So he said, well, let me think about that. So 2 weeks later, he called me back and he said, I've been giving your situation a lot of thought, and it occurred to me that if I made you a steel plate that you could bolt onto the wall, onto the studs, and then be able to put my docking bars on that thing, that it'd be a kind of expensive proposition. Well, I don't know what he meant by expensive. I was going to ask him what that would cost. He came back to me and said, much better solution would be just to go over to Home Depot or go over to Lowe's and get a hold of some kiln dried lumber and use that, cut it to fit your vertical section of wall, and then stain it and then bolt it onto your studs, and then you can go ahead and lag screw my little L-shaped docking bars onto the wood, and it'll work for you. And it won't be that expensive. So I said, okay, Dan, I think I'll be able to do that. So I gave it a little bit of thought, and sure enough, here's what I came up with a solution. So what you see here is a 2x8 by 8 foot length of kiln dried Douglas fir that I went ahead and cut to fit this wall. There's actually more of a story to that I'll tell you in a little while, but I went ahead and got that wood from Home Depot. Then I cut it to length and stained it just like Dan suggested, and now notice I've got my Forster coax mounted on that piece of vertical wood, and it's working out real well. And it's using that L-shaped docking clamp that Dan makes at Inline Fabrication. Here's another one of my vertical storage units, and you see how it's bolted to the top header? And then there's my Redding Ultramax, and there's that little L-shaped docking bar. Now notice the center screw is actually a lag screw that goes all the way through and into a stud. And it's also bolted to the floor header down there. And I went ahead and cut the little molding so that 2x8 will fit there. You might wonder why I mounted the press so low that I'm wasting space. No, actually I'm going to use this spot for my Dillon 550B, and I want a little extra space there, so in case I want to leave my powder measure on that press, it'll have lots of room for that. And besides, if I have extra room on top, I can put another docking station for a riser or something, store my risers on this thing too. Now there's my Coca-Cola sign that's left over from our family store in Emeryville, the grocery store. Now notice the vertical wood storage that I have there with my Lyman All-American 8 mounted high. And so I'll be able to put more mounts along here. And there it is, bolted to the floor joist. So Dan, thank you for your service and making this suggestion. Works out great. And you've been in business quite a while, and apparently this kind of vertical storage isn't something that your buyers and the people that use inline fabrication stuff, that they don't do this. Well, this is a great idea, because I could have mounted this a little bit higher, and then that left more room for 2 more presses underneath. Anyway, this is a shorter version for you, Dan, because you don't need to see the rest of it.